The Outlaw Josey Wales, 1976, is a legendary Western film that captivated audiences with its gritty storytelling, unforgettable characters, and Clint Eastwood's powerful performance as the titular hero. However, as time has passed, many of the talented actors who brought this iconic story to life have sadly passed away. In this video, we take a heartfelt look back at the cast members of The Outlaw Josey Wales who have tragically died. From their memorable roles to their lives beyond the screen, we honor their contributions to cinema and the lasting legacy they left behind. Join us as we pay tribute to the stars who helped make this Western masterpiece unforgettable. Chief Dan George was born on July 24, 1899, and played Lone Waddy in The Outlaw Josey Wales at the age of 77. The character was soulful and humorous, but the man behind it bore scars rarely discussed. Before his acting career, he endured systemic oppression as a longshoreman who witnessed Canada's forced assimilation of Indigenous children, including his own siblings, who were taken to residential schools. Though hailed for his dignity, George quietly fought off critics within Indigenous communities who felt he was too gentle in his activism. He once suffered a breakdown after being denied speaking rights at a political event, a humiliation he never forgot. Rumors circulated of a falling out with his son over land rights, a dispute that fractured their relationship permanently. Despite public reverence, he struggled with worsening health and was quietly dropped from several late career projects due to concerns over his memory. Chief Dan George died of heart failure on September 23, 1981, at the age of 82. Bill McKini, born September 12, 1931, took on the role of Captain Terrell in The Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at age 45, playing a vengeful killer whose cruelty left a trail of blood and dread. Off-camera, McKini was infamous for his unsettling commitment to violent roles, especially after Deliverance, where his brutal portrayal branded him with a lifelong image of menace. Rumors followed him, method acting that went too far, off-set confrontations, and intense, eerie silences that disturbed colleagues. Burt Reynolds once said McKini wasn't acting, he was just dangerous, a quote McKini bitterly contested but never outran. Struggling with typecasting and battling alcoholism for years, he drifted between forgettable B-movies and survivalist gigs. He rarely spoke of his son, whom he allegedly disowned after a personal betrayal. Though he later found peace in music and poetry, the damage lingered. Bill McKini died on December 1, 2011, aged 80, from esophageal cancer. Sandre Lock was born on May 28, 1944, and portrayed Laura Lee in 1970's The Outlaw Josey Wales at age 32. Her role as a quiet yet emotionally scarred war survivor mirrored her off-screen fragility, but also masked a steely will. Though the film launched her into the public eye, Lock's career soon became entangled in her volatile, controlling relationship with Clint Eastwood. Behind closed doors, she lived in Eastwood's guest house while he allegedly manipulated her career and forced abortions, leading to a notorious palimony suit and a second lawsuit accusing Warner Brothers of blacklisting her under Eastwood's influence. Hollywood doors slammed shut. She was branded difficult, and her efforts to direct were quietly buried. Lock's personal life was no less stormy. Her marriage to gay sculptor Gordon Anderson was a platonic facade she never dissolved, while rumors of breakdowns and isolation swirled after the Eastwood fallout. She battled cancer quietly in her final years. Sandre Lock died on November 3, 2018, at age 74 from cardiac arrest stemming from metastatic breast cancer. John Vernon, born February 24, 1932, stepped into the conflicted shoes of Captain Fletcher in The Outlaw Josey Wales at age 44. His character was torn between military duty and moral crisis, but Vernon's real life often lacked such nuance. Though known for his velvet menace in roles like Dean Wormer in Animal House, Vernon was quietly plagued by professional bitterness. He resented being pigeonholed into villain roles and clashed with directors who found him overly theatrical and impossible to direct. Vernon was known to explode on set, once storming off a Canadian production over a script rewrite. Privately, he faced rumors of a turbulent home life, multiple affairs, one of which allegedly led to an illegitimate child he refused to acknowledge. He was also blackballed from Canadian theatre circles after a failed attempt to launch his own drama school, which collapsed amid financial scandal. John Vernon died on February 1, 2005, aged 72, due to complications following heart surgery. Sam Bottoms, born October 17, 1955, played Jamie in the Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at the age of 21. Jamie was the symbol of innocence, a boyish soldier swept into Josey's warpath, only to be cut down too soon. But Bottoms' own life mirrored a much darker version of lost youth. Coming from a famed acting family, he was thrust into the spotlight early and introduced to a world of temptation. During the filming of Apocalypse Now, he reportedly began experimenting with hallucinogens on set, with director Francis Ford Coppola later confirming that Sam was under the influence during key scenes. His career never fully recovered after Early Promise, roles dwindled, and he was quietly dropped from several productions due to erratic behavior. Behind closed doors, his marriage faltered amid rumors of infidelity and long absences. Friends described a man haunted by what could have been, who sought solace in isolation. He battled substance abuse for decades, and his once bright charm faded under the weight of regret. Sam Bottoms died on December 16, 2008, at age 53, from brain cancer. Paula Truman was born on April 25, 1897, and portrayed the feisty Grandma Sarah in the Outlaw Josey Wales at age 79, a role that mirrored her real-life sharp wit and refusal to be sidelined. But her long career was not without bitterness. A veteran of Yiddish theater and Broadway, Truman harbored deep resentments toward Hollywood for casting her almost exclusively as eccentric old women. She once called her film career a funeral march of stereotypes. Behind the quips, her personal life was riddled with loneliness, never married, no children, and estranged from her only sibling over a decades-old inheritance dispute. She reportedly battled periods of depression and was known for her demanding behavior on sets. One assistant claimed she'd lash out verbally when she felt overlooked. Though her health declined after a collapse on the Dirty Dancing set, she remained stoically private. Paula Truman died of natural causes on March 23, 1994, at age 96. Woodro Parfry, born October 5, 1922, portrayed the sleazy carpetbagger in the Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at age 54. On screen, his character slithered through the aftermath of war, a parasite feeding on chaos. Off-screen, Parfry's life was a strange blend of brilliance and eerie distance. A World War II POW, he returned home physically intact but emotionally scarred, a trauma he never discussed publicly. He found solace in playing outsiders and maniacs, often cast for his unsettling presence. But those who worked with him often whispered about his method acting going too far. One director claimed Parfry stayed in character for months, refusing to speak to his own family. Despite a long list of TV and film credits, he remained an outsider in Hollywood, reportedly blacklisted briefly in the 60s due to alleged communist sympathies. His home life was strained. He was distant with his children, particularly his son Adam, who later became a notorious underground publisher of fringe and taboo material, some say in defiance of his father's cold intellectualism. Woodro Parfry died on July 29, 1984, of a heart attack, age 61. Joyce Jameson, born September 26, 1927, took on the role of Rose in the Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at the age of 49. Her character, a weary saloon woman with a heart, offered brief respite from the film's brutality. Despite a comic persona on screen, she privately spiraled through decades of untreated depression. Her relationship with Robert Vaughn, passionate, toxic, and laced with betrayal, left deep emotional scars. Vaughn himself admitted their romance was fraught with mental health crises and dependency issues. Jameson underwent multiple stints in psychiatric care and reportedly relied heavily on sleeping pills and alcohol to get through the days. Professionally, she was often typecast, overlooked for dramatic roles due to her past as a buxom blonde in the Beverly Hillbillies and the Comedy of Terrors. By the time she landed her role in Josey Wales, she was already seen as a fading face. She wrote in her journals about feelings of being discarded by Hollywood and struggling with suicidal ideation. On January 16, 1987, Joyce Jameson died by suicide from an overdose of sleeping pills at age 59. Royal Dano, born November 16, 1922, portrayed 10 Spot in the Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at the age of 54. 10 Spot was odd, endearing, and haunting, much like Dano himself. A master of macabre roles, Dano was known for his spectral voice and gaunt features, often cast as prophets or preachers. Yet few knew of the grief that gnawed at his core. His eldest son died young in a tragic motorcycle accident, a loss that turned Dano increasingly reclusive. He rarely gave interviews, avoided Hollywood parties, and refused to attend premieres. Despite a career spanning over 4 decades, he was often overlooked, typecast into shadows. His marriage reportedly suffered under the weight of his gloom. He was said to speak little at home and spend hours lost in old radio recordings. He was also known to harbor resentment against the industry that never truly embraced him. While he avoided public scandal, those who worked with him noted a deep sadness that pervaded his presence, especially in his final years. Royal Dano died on May 15, 1994, of a heart attack at age 71. Sheb Woolly, born April 10, 1921, appeared as Travis Cobb in the Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at age 55. His character, a storekeeper with dry wit, provided light amid the film's violence. But Sheb's life was far more complex than his novelty song Purple People Eater would suggest. Married 5 times, he left a trail of broken relationships and legal disputes over royalties and publishing rights. Insiders from Nashville described him as controlling and quick to anger, especially when challenged. Though known for humor, he could reportedly turn cruel behind closed doors. In Hollywood, he gained notoriety as the uncredited voice of the famous Wilhelm scream, but rarely acknowledged it, believing it cheapened his legacy. He battled financial troubles late in life, allegedly swindled by a business partner in a failed Western memorabilia venture. Friends said he became bitter and paranoid, believing younger musicians and actors were stealing his spotlight. Woolly died on September 16, 2003, from leukemia at age 82. Will Samson, born September 27, 1933, played 10 Bears in the Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at age 43. The character exuded spiritual gravitas and quiet power, standing as a dignified force of respect and wisdom amid chaos. Samson, a proud Muskogee Creek Native American, became a reluctant symbol of resistance in an industry that tokenized his heritage. Though he championed indigenous rights in Hollywood, famously protesting the miscasting of white actors in native roles, he grew bitter at being typecast. Less known is the fact that he struggled with isolation in his final years, watching his body deteriorate from scleroderma, a painful disease that hardened his skin and lungs. His attempts to maintain dignity were undermined by rumors of emotional outbursts and a growing dependence on painkillers. Though never embroiled in a headline scandal, the real tragedy of Samson's life was how a man of such spirit was slowly erased by a system that never fully valued him. He died on June 3, 1987, at 53, after complications from heart and lung transplant surgery. William O'Connell, born May 12, 1929, appeared as Sim Carstairs in 1976 at age 47. The jittery ferryman was comic relief on screen, but off it, O'Connell's life was quietly haunted. Though he kept a modest profile, insiders recalled a man deeply resentful of never escaping bit roles, even as he regularly worked with Clint Eastwood. Friends noted his increasing paranoia in later years, convinced he had been blackballed after a falling out with a Warner Brothers producer in the late 70s. He allegedly once stormed off a set, accusing the crew of mocking his voice. His marriage collapsed in the 1980s under the weight of financial insecurity and untreated depression, and his estranged daughter later described him as brilliant but unreachable. Though no formal scandals emerged, OConnell was a recluse by the 2000s, reportedly living alone with stacks of unpaid bills and hoarded scripts. He died on January 15, 2024, at 94, of undisclosed causes. Len Leser, born December 3, 1922, played the lovable Abe at age 54, but behind the comedic charm was a life punctuated by emotional trauma and abandonment. Drafted into World War II, Leser returned broken, plagued by survivor's guilt after losing his entire unit in a botched Italian raid. He rarely spoke of it, but co-stars noted his obsession with routine and inability to form lasting bonds. His only marriage ended when his wife left abruptly, citing emotional vacancy. His son became estranged after accusing Leser of prioritizing auditions over fatherhood. In the 80s, Leser was briefly blackballed from a network after drunkenly insulting a showrunner at a holiday party. Though his late-life fame as Uncle Leo on Seinfeld redeemed his career, he was known on set for being unpredictable, sometimes disappearing between takes or flying into fits of laughter mid-scene. He died of pneumonia related to cancer on February 16, 2011, at 88. John Quaid, born April 1, 1938, brought sinister energy to the Comanchero leader at age 38 in Josey Wales. On screen, he was the embodiment of frontier brutality. Off-screen, he was just as combative, though in politics rather than crime. After starting in aerospace engineering, Quaid descended into radical anti-government activism. He appeared on talk shows in the 90s railing against taxes, driver's licenses, and even the U.S. Constitution. Castmates recalled his refusal to participate in union meetings and his public rants about Hollywood elites controlling the minds of children. Rumors swirled that he once threatened a co-star during a heated argument over vaccinations on set. His behavior grew erratic in his later years, including a bizarre 2006 speech in which he claimed Hollywood was part of a new world order. While he avoided legal trouble, Quaid's legacy was overshadowed by his extremist views. He died of a heart attack on August 9, 2009, at age 71. Buck Kartalian, born August 13, 1922, played the rough-edged shopkeeper at age 54. Though his role was minor, Kartalian's off-screen personality was anything but. Known in the wrestling world as Hell's Kitchen Hammer, he brought that same aggression to Hollywood. Multiple extras and crew reported Kartalian's tendency to berate younger actors and intimidate wardrobe staff. Behind the scenes, he had a tempestuous relationship with his second wife, allegedly smashing mirrors during arguments and once being forcibly removed from a set after a drunken tirade. Though never charged, whispers of domestic violence and controlling behavior followed him. He was blacklisted by a few TV studios in the early 80s, leading to a decline in roles. Despite this, he remained fiercely proud of his bodybuilder past and dismissed Hollywood as soft. Kartalian died of natural causes on May 24, 2016, at 93, but many remembered him more for his temper than his talent. John Russell, born January 3, 1921, appeared as Bloody Bill Anderson at age 55, a sadistic rebel who symbolized the war's moral collapse. In real life, Russell embodied the same iron-willed exterior, but his private world was deeply fractured. A decorated World War II Marine, Russell came home addicted to morphine, a habit he never fully broke. His first marriage crumbled when he was accused of physical abuse, though no charges were filed. He remarried, but friends noted his second wife often appeared bruised and withdrawn. He was fired from a 1960s Western series after slapping a crew member during a dispute over dialogue. Though his performances were celebrated, producers whispered about his volcanic temper and difficult ego. Clint Eastwood reportedly had to personally vouch for him to get him cast in Josey Wales. Russell later became increasingly isolated, hoarding firearms and ranting about government conspiracies. He died of emphysema on January 19, 1991, at 70, having burned most of his bridges in both family and film. Bob Hoye, born April 3, 1927, played the 2nd Texas Ranger in the Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at age 49. A powerhouse in the stunt world, Hoye's life was a high-wire act filled with adrenaline and chaos. Behind the image of a consummate professional lay a man haunted by near-fatal injuries and a secret painkiller addiction developed after a catastrophic fall on set in the 1960s. His colleagues quietly tolerated his mood swings and erratic decisions, chalking them up to pain or pressure. Hoye's marriage nearly collapsed after a scandal involving an affair with a much younger stunt woman in 1983, which sparked a rift within the Stuntmen's Association. There were whispers of under-the-table hush money and blacklisting attempts that forced him to take on uncredited work to survive. He was known to have a short temper, often clashing with directors who pushed for multiple takes. Bob Hoye died of cancer on February 8, 2010, at age 82, still revered but carrying unhealed scars, both physical and personal, that never left him. Richard Farnsworth, born September 1, 1920, appeared in the Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at age 56, playing a hardened Comanchero. Known later for roles full of warmth, the early Farnsworth lived a double life, stuntman by day, despairing loner by night. His decades of being physically battered for the camera left him in chronic pain and emotional exhaustion. Though admired for humility, Farnsworth privately battled depression for years. He struggled with guilt over his estranged relationship with his son, who once accused him of abandoning the family in favor of fame. Despite accolades, including an Oscar nomination, he felt typecast and underappreciated, confiding in friends that he was a forgotten cowboy waiting for the last ride. Diagnosed with terminal cancer in 1999, Farnsworth refused further treatment and took his own life on October 6, 2000, at age 80, by gunshot, leaving behind a note that spoke not of fame, but of failure, pain, and the long, lonely road he could no longer travel. John Mitchum, born September 6, 1919, played Al in the Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at the age of 57. On screen, Al was kind-hearted and grounded, but off-screen, John lived under the overbearing shadow of his famous brother, Robert Mitchum. Despite a long career in supporting roles, John's attempts to distinguish himself were often crushed by comparisons and dismissiveness from studios who only saw him as the other Mitchum. His frustrations led to bitter fallouts with agents and a short-lived blacklist in the late 1960s after he publicly accused a studio executive of sabotage. He turned to poetry and patriotism in part to escape the identity crisis of being a Hollywood afterthought. His 1970s spoken-word recordings were mocked in private circles, and his insistence on being taken seriously as a cultural figure became a running joke among some peers. Behind his gentle voice was a man drowning in insecurity and resentment. John Mitchum died on November 29, 2001, at age 82, from a stroke, leaving behind a legacy more tragic than triumphant. John Davis Chandler, born January 28, 1935, played the first bounty hunter in the Outlaw Josey Wales in 1976 at age 41. His on-screen coldness was no act. Friends described Chandler as emotionally remote, with a disturbing obsession for method acting that bordered on dangerous. In one chilling incident on a 1970s TV set, he allegedly stayed in character as a murderer for days, prompting concerns for the safety of the cast. Though he later turned to yoga and spiritualism, his early career was littered with breakdowns, including a nervous collapse during a failed off-Broadway revival that ended in a lawsuit over breach of contract. He avoided the Hollywood scene not by choice but because his behavior had made him nearly unemployable outside of B-movie villain roles. Rumors of a long-term same-sex relationship with a prominent director swirled but were never acknowledged, something Chandler allegedly feared would destroy his career in the conservative circles of 1970s cinema. He died of cancer on February 16, 2010, at age 75. Clint Eastwood, born on May 31, 1930, remains alive as of 2025. He played Josey Wales at 46, a former Confederate soldier turned vengeful outlaw seeking redemption through unexpected compassion. At 46, Eastwood delivered a performance that further solidified his legacy as the definitive Western antihero, stoic, lethal, yet fiercely human. Off-camera, Eastwood's career became one of Hollywood's most prolific, with critical acclaim as both actor and director. But his personal life has long drawn scrutiny. He fathered at least 8 children with multiple women, many of whom were kept secret for decades. His long-term affairs, overlapping relationships, and reluctance to publicly acknowledge some of his children have fueled controversy. Still, Eastwood has maintained control over his narrative, directing award-winning films well into his 90s. He stands as one of the last true giants of classic American cinema, respected, polarizing, and undeniably enduring. Matt Clark, born on November 25, 1936, appeared as Kelly at the age of 40, a weary Union soldier whose fleeting interactions with Josey Wales underscore the disillusionment and moral ambiguity left in war's wake. Clark was 39 during filming and brought depth to a small but emotionally rich role. Known for his everyman presence and authentic character work, he has appeared in numerous films and television shows over 5 decades, including Jeremiah Johnson, Back to the Future Part 3, and Return to Oz. Often cast as working-class men or slightly offbeat characters, he earned a reputation as a dependable and grounded actor. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Clark avoided the trappings of celebrity and has kept his personal life largely private. Now in his late 80s, he remains a respected figure in the industry, valued for his understated performances and his quiet dedication to craft over fame. Geraldine Kees, born on August 19, 1951, portrayed Little Moonlight at the age of 25, a quiet yet fiercely resilient young Navajo woman who becomes part of Josey's makeshift family. Though her role was modest in screen time, it stood out for its grace and authenticity, offering a rare respectful portrayal of indigenous identity in a mainstream Western. A proud Navajo woman herself, Kees has dedicated her career to uplifting Native American stories both on stage and on screen. Trained in theater, she has performed extensively across the U.S. and has written plays rooted in Native culture and oral tradition. In Hollywood, she has consistently spoken out about the lack of indigenous representation and stereotyping in film. Kees has lived a life free of scandal, channeling her energy into advocacy, education, and mentorship, making her not only a talented actress but also a key cultural voice in indigenous media and performance. She is now 73 in 2025. Who's your favorite character in the Outlaw Josey Wales? How do you feel knowing that the actors have passed away? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thank you so much.